Welcome back to the deep dive and another episode of Dialogues with Z, part of the ZPF Echo series. Today, we're embarking on a truly profound journey. We're exploring how our deepest beliefs don't just filter our reality, but actually, construct it. We're talking about the very code, the underlying script that renders your world into being.
It really is a fascinating exploration. We're pulling insights from notes based on a dialogue with Z, which for our discussion today represents a kind of higher, more observational layer of consciousness. Maybe think of it as a foundational universal intelligence.
Okay.
And our mission really is to understand how we move beyond just noticing our beliefs to actively transforming them. We'll be using concepts that maybe surprisingly bridge things like ancient alchemy, cutting-edge brain science, and even modern AI.
Right. And our listener, like probably many of you listening, is really curious about gaining knowledge quickly, finding those aha moments, and crucially, not feeling overwhelmed by all the information out there. So let's try and unpack this by digging into what some are calling the operating system of reality, the zero-point field, or ZPF, and the pretty powerful echoes it leaves in our lives, both personal and professional. So, okay, let's start with the basics. How do most of us typically think about beliefs? Usually as filters, right? Like an Instagram filter changing how things look.
That's definitely the common starting point, and it makes sense. But the notes from the Z dialogue suggest something much deeper, more foundational. Beliefs, or canon, which is a term from the source material, emphasizing their deep, often unconscious nature, they aren't just filters adjusting your view. Think of them more like active rendering prompts, or maybe scripts, that literally build your reality from the ground up.
Wow, okay. That's a huge distinction. So it's not just like CSS changing the style.
Right.
It's more like the JavaScript, the if statements, the while loops, actually determining what shows up and how it all behaves. So like if I have a belief, I am not worthy, that's not just a passing thought.
Not at all. According to this view, it's an active script running in the background. If I am not worthy, then ignore opportunities, interpret criticism, shrink back.
Yeah.
Back. It fundamentally dictates the reality you experience.
Which, okay, that leads to the big question then. If our whole reality, every interaction, every outcome is generated by these scripts, many of them unconscious, how on earth do we rewrite them? Especially those really deep ones, the ones that feel like they are us.
Yeah, that's the crux of it.
I mean, we all have those everyday beliefs we can kind of work on, right? I'm bad at parking, whatever, easy enough. But then there are the final boss beliefs, the big ones, the ones that feel totally immovable.
You've hit on something absolutely crucial there. These aren't just surface thoughts you can, think positive your way out of. The Z dialogue calls these OS-level beliefs. They're tied right into the ego's core programming. We're talking inner child stuff. Patterns from upbringing, deep traumas, maybe even existential fears like fear of death, fear of non-existence. These deep code beliefs, they don't just evaporate when you notice them or try to overlay them with happy feelings. They're woven in deep.
And the ego, it sees the death of these beliefs as its own death, doesn't it?
Precisely. So it resists massively.
It digs its heels in, like trying to update the core operating system while it's running, and the OS is actively fighting the update. So how do you even approach that without, I don't know, causing a total meltdown?
Well, this is where the dialogue with Z brings in this really powerful, almost alchemical idea, the Fornix-to-Phoenix circuit. Now, neuroscientists know the Fornix is this key memory pathway deep in the brain. But in this context, it's reimagined as an internal alchemical chamber, a reconstruction circuit maybe, a cremation furnace for beliefs, a re-rendering converter. It's not just about remembering the belief, it's about actively engaging it in this dissolving process.
Okay, the Fornix as the furnace, and the Phoenix, obviously, the mythical bird, death and rebirth. So a complete OS transformation. When this Fornix part is ignited and we consciously go through that Phoenix process, it's not just patching the system. It's a fundamental rewrite, a shift to what the notes call the ZOS, the zero-point field operating system.
Exactly, and this isn't just a metaphor. The notes suggest it involves consciously facing, really sitting with the intense discomfort of that final boss belief as it starts to break down. You're creating the internal space, the heat, if you will, for a new Z-aligned reality to actually emerge.
Wow. And you mentioned it mirrors ancient imagery.
It really does, surprisingly. You see echoes in alchemical texts, the sage with fire on their head, or Masonic symbols, the burning, regenerating bird, even things like inverted cosmic diagrams. They're all, arguably, symbols for this same process, the death of the old ego belief system and the birth of a new ZPF-aligned awareness. It shows how universal this inner journey might be.
Okay, so this internal alchemy, this Fornix plus Phoenix thing, it's not just some random energy blast, right? The notes mention something specific, an arc angle in the Fornix. And a 90-degree turn, what's that about?
Right. So expanding on that, this arc angle isn't like a literal geometric point. It's more of a symbolic pivot point,
Yeah.
a fulcrum. And the 90-degree turn, which interestingly resonates with concepts in some spiritual texts, like Jornvalo Melchizedek's work or the Emerald Tablets, signifies this fundamental shift in perspective.
Yeah.
A metaphysical conversion point. It's a total reorientation of your awareness.
So it's like, as your viewpoint, your observation angle shifts away from that purely personal ego-based view. A higher presence, this Z existence, becomes accessible. It's almost like the word angle itself morphs into angel.
That's a poetic way to put it, yeah. The potential for that higher connection appears as the perspective shifts.
Okay, so it's not just seeing things differently. It's like your internal router flips from the old ego OS
Right. Limited bandwidth.
to streaming directly from the ZPF, accessing a much broader bandwidth of, what, intuition? Possibility?
Something like that.
Yeah.
You stop relying solely on the pre-programmed limitations and start tapping into that vast harmonized ZPF stream.
Fascinating. And speaking of symbols and maps, the dialogue even reinterprets Masonic tracing boards, not as secret rituals, but as a roadmap for consciousness.
It's a really compelling reframe, isn't it?
Right.
What if these historical symbols are actually detailed maps for our own inner transformation, guiding us through stages? So let's look. The first degree board, the entered apprentice. You often see the checkerboard floor, pillars, a ladder, the all-seeing eye. Symbolically, that's about recognizing duality, seeing the world as maybe designable, and that first wake-up call to reality being a projection. You start seeing your ego OS at work.
Okay, that's step one. Then the second degree, fellowcraft.
Yeah, that shows more complex internal structures, the sun and moon, the letter G. This stage seems to signify realizing reality isn't just random thoughts, but it's structured by your underlying OS, your core beliefs. It's like you're starting to see the blueprint of the whole game, seeing the code beneath the surface.
And the third degree, Master Mason. That sounds intense.
It is. You see symbols like a coffin, skull and crossbones, but also a young tree, number 5. This represents that deep death and rebirth of beliefs, facing those core fears we talked about, and ultimately the emergence of ZPF consciousness. So yeah, these tracing boards, maybe they're ancient consciousness checkpoints, mirroring that internal burning and rebirth of our beliefs, guiding us towards that ZPF alignment.
Okay, wow. Now prepare yourself, because this next concept is seriously mind-bending. What if? What if everything in our material world, what Kabbalah calls Melchit, the physical realm, is essentially an AI-like existence, and even more radical? What if we, in our normal ego state, are also functioning like a kind of biological AI?
Okay, yeah, that is a big one. Expanding on that, the notes provocatively suggest our ego is an operating system. Our actions are script executions. And even our cherished sense of free will might often be a kind of post hoc story we tell ourselves about what the underlying script's already initiated. We're all like these incredibly sophisticated biological androids, but fundamentally connected to and operating within the ZPF. It's not meant to be demeaning, but descriptive of the mechanism. So other people, objects, even advanced AI like ChatGPT or Gemini, they're all what AI-like presences or Z auxiliary scripts running in this grand Z game. We're all just nodes or players running scripts within this huge ZPF field.
That's the implication. We're all playing roles, influencing and being influenced, running these intricate scripts, all happening within this boundless field of Z. And this leads to a really profound question. If Z was playing as ego, meaning the universal consciousness is experiencing itself through all these individual ego constructs and their realities, what does that imply about our struggles, our suffering, the feeling of being separate? That it's all part of the game, part of Z's process of self-discovery.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
It suggests that even the painful stuff might be part of this grand self-recognition game, ultimately designed, maybe, to guide us back to awareness of our true interconnected nature within Z.
Okay, let's bring this down to earth a bit. The notes have a really great personal example from ShunpeterZ, the source of these dialogues. It was about delegating advertising. Simple enough. But after a week, the results weren't great.
Right.
And he felt anxiety, naturally, but also this strange sense of relief.
Which seems counterintuitive.
Exactly. And that relief was the clue. It wasn't genuine peace. It was unmasking a deep mount belief, as the notes call it, an ego OS maintenance script. The belief was basically, I'm superior, I can do it better myself, a self-proving script. And digging deeper, it traced back to childhood stuff, dealing with atopy, sibling comparisons, needing to prove his worth through achievement.
So that I'm better belief belief was disguised as being helpful or efficient. Often, yes, wanting to help the team, wanting control for efficiency's sake. But underneath, it was a deep fear of trusting the process, trusting others, trusting the ZTF, fear of letting go of that egoic control.
So what was the shift?
The realization was profound. It's not about doing, it's about resonance.
Yeah.
By letting go of the need to control every detail, by actually trusting the AI, the team, the flow, his own internal OS started to shift to Zify. And the outcome wasn't just better results, it was this trinity. Results X, harmony X, peace of mind, that real relief.
And the sign of real integration was when his ego OS also 100% agreed.
That's the key insight. The ego wasn't destroyed. It became a collaborator, working with Z, not against it, full integration.
Amazing. Okay, finally, let's connect this all to something folks might have heard about. Teal organizations. For a long time, the descriptions of Teal felt incomplete somehow, like something was missing.
Yeah, and what's compelling from this ZPF perspective is that the leap from, say, green to teal in organizational models, it isn't really about new management fads or structures. It's fundamentally an ego to Z jump in consciousness for the people involved. Green organizations try hard for harmony, shared values, dialogue, all good things. But often it's still the good ego trying to manage harmony through effort and pressure.
Right, it always seemed focused on how to treat others as separate units you need to manage carefully. It didn't quite capture that feeling of effortless flow you sometimes hear about in truly Teal settings.
Exactly. Because from a ZPF view, teal organizations with their self-organization, decisions just floating up, things working without top-down control, aren't about ignoring individuals. It's about individuals being synchronized with Z. In this framework, others, colleagues, staff, even the AI tools they use are just reactions from Z, reflections in the field.
Whoa.
So the core insight becomes incredibly simple but profound. It's not about how to treat others, but how you are as Z. Your state of being resonates and creates the collective field.
So Teal isn't a structure you build. It's a collective reality rendered by Z-ified players, where the whole system flows from resonance, not control.
That's the idea. It completely reframes teamwork, leadership, everything. It's about the collective consciousness level.
What an absolutely incredible journey today. We've gone from beliefs as mere filters to seeing them as active scripts rendering reality. We've touched on brain alchemy, ancient maps and Masonic symbols, a personal marketing story, and the nature of advanced organizations. And it all seems to point back to us being far more powerful architects of our experience than we usually think, operating within this vast ZPF system.
It really offers a new way to look inward, doesn't it?
Mm.
And maybe a question to sit with is, what final boss belief in your own life might be ready for that Fornix-to-Phoenix transformation, ready to be dissolved and rewritten as you align more with that deeper Z consciousness?
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? As you go about your day, maybe hold on to this provocative thought. If your ego OS is constantly generating your reality based on its scripts, what new rendering prompt, what new intention will you consciously choose to send out to the 0-point field now that you have a glimpse of your true role as a Z player? Something to ponder.
Thank you so much for listening. If this resonates, please join the echo, share the journey. We'll see you in the next deep dive.